Good evening and welcome to the presentation for Dallas Camera Club's October print and projected competition. Because we are working with a new scoring system this year, and we are about halfway through the competition season, it seems like an appropriate time for a quick review of our 3 judging criteria as well as what the scores mean. Images are judged based on impact, composition, and technical accomplishment. Impact: the degree to which an image successfully conveys a thought, idea, feeling, or emotion through creative and original efforts. It can best be measured by the strength of the response upon the viewer. An image with a high level of impact will leave a lasting first impression and could possess what some might call a strong wow factor or other elements that suggest that the message was well received. Composition: the creative arrangement of the parts of an image as they come together to form a harmonious conclusion. A strongly composed image typically combines originality with elementary design principles, line, shape, form, balance, etc., along with more complex creative devices, perspective, framing, direction of movement, etc. If impact is the destination for an image, then composition is the road that gets us there. Technical accomplishment, or technique: the successful application of photographic methods used to create the final image. Consideration may be given to competency with a camera, post-production and editing, as well as printing and presentation methods. This includes image capture, exposure control, sharpness, post-processing, color balance, sharpening, and presentation, paper choice, matting. Our club embraces all forms of photography, both traditional and digital. Each image should be judged based on the content of the image, not the process by which it was created. In some cases, this might include a departure from standard methods. If impact is where we're going and composition is how we get there, then technical accomplishments are the nuts and bolts that hold it together. Score values: 1 point. Changes needed. 2 points. Improvements would be helpful. 3 points. Good with no significant issues. 4 points. Very good. 5 points. Outstanding. Our print judge this month is Kate Helms. She teaches photography at the Creative Arts Learning Center of Dallas, www.creativeartscenter.org, and is a basic design instructor at UTA. First, we have beginners monochrome prints. Afternoon at the cafe. In general, be careful with your use of filters and make sure they are appropriate to your subject matter. I'm not sure the use of filters works here. The composition is nice and solid and works well for the subject matter. 2 points for impact, 3 points for composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 7 points. Urban Landscape by Pat Camp. The printing needs improvement. There appears to be a great deal of pixelation in the image, though the tonal range is good. The composition feels a little tight along the side of the crane, but I like the replication of lines with the buildings and the crane. 3 points for impact and composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 8 points. A Rainy Day in Bergen. Linda Sharp. The composition is good. I find the consideration of the tires along the water at the bottom adds interest. Good tonal range in your printing. The matting needs some improvement. It's not level, and the white edges should be trimmed away. With this square image, a portrait orientation on the mat board would improve the presentation. 3 points for impact and composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 8 points. Black and White City by David Stiff. The focus is a little soft, but you have nice straight lines here, and the composition is good. Three points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 9 points. Reflections of Metal in Trees by Chris Kobos. The tonal range is good, but there is something strange going on with your highlights. There's some haloing that is either the result of digital manipulation or the printer not being able to handle the highlights. Good job using a smaller aperture to get the starbursts on your lights. I like that you tried something different here. 3 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 9 points. Downtown Herd by Michael Farnham.
I think there's not enough tonal range or value going on here. I feel like it's a little like they're not fully grasping the darks, and the whites that are there aren't utilized well. They certainly picked a really nice area. They clearly took in consideration where things are placed. Could use a little bit of work. I feel like if there was just a sliver more room, it would just like make that composition just a little bit sweeter, and maybe tilting the camera at a little bit of a different angle.
3 points for impact, 4 points for composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 9 points, and honorable mention. Stairwells by Richard Stern.
Again, this printing is extremely nice. I love the way these sort of things are just really glowing in there. I think the composition's good, I think the printing's good, and because of that, the impact overall is really good.
4 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 12 points and 3rd place. Morning at the Coffee Shop by Julie Horak.
I really like this photo a lot. I think that light that's coming through is really beautiful. I think the angle that they even put it on, because it's sort of this strange angle, but you can still tell that they took the time to line up these edges and let it skew off in this really great way. I love this guy that's reading a paper. He's really nicely placed within the thing. I'm not sure how I feel about the coffee cup there, whether it helps or not, but that's sort of a picky situation, so either have them get it out or have them have more in. So that decision has to be made.
4 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 12 points. And 2nd place. Sign of the Times by Susan Burciaga.
I love this photo. I think the printing is excellent. It's really gritty printing too. Like you get up close and things aren't sharp, but in this instance, it doesn't necessarily need to be super pristine and sharp, because the fact is that values in the tonal range is so rich and so amazing, and the contrast is really great that you just can't take that away. I think this person probably needs to be above beginning level. I don't think they're a beginning level photographer by any means.
5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15. Next we have advanced monochrome prints. Bicycle Path in Paris by Anne Redfern.
I'm not sold on the values on this one, but I super love the composition. I love how these lines are going back and sort of coming through the road. I love where this sign is because it seems so out of place but very in place. I think it's a really nice composition.
4 points for impact and composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 11 points, and honorable mention. The Stalker by Bob Krause.
I really like the composition of this one. I really like the use of shadows. Not sure whether this person used a filter or whether they just took a blurry photo, but I think in this case it definitely works towards the kind of weird feeling of it. So I think in terms of urban landscape, this actually is more impactful than others because it's a different interpretation. It implies the urban setting. It implies the building without actually showing me the building.
4 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 12 points and 3rd place. Memphis Rooftop by Aaron Curry. 4 points for impact, 5 points for composition, 4 points for technique, for a total of 13 points and 2nd place. Venice Vanishing by Jay Hoppenstein. I like the forms on the wall and the way they are placed in the composition. The printing is really good, and overall this image has great impact for me. 4 points for impact, 5 points for composition, 5 points for tech. Next we have Masters Monochrome Prints. City Layers by Kay Hargis.
This is just a beautiful photo. That printing is gorgeous. I love how white the flowers are against the really dark things. I love the composition. It's just a beautiful photo.
5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points, and honorable mention. Urban Bookstore, Agra, India, by Harry Rumberger.
Again, printing great. I'm not sure it goes exactly with the theme. It's just so good that I'm not sure it matters to me. And I guess it's very urban for this area, to be quite honest, so maybe it does fit the theme really well. But I think it's, again, beautiful.
15 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points, and third place. Mercado Rooster by Frank Richards. I love the placement of the people in this image. I really like the humor of the rooster claw over the man's head. I like the sense of culture that the taqueria lends this image. The print quality is great. 5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points, and second place. Chinatown by Bill Hayes. This is an amazing photo. I love the triangle of light and the placement of the man walking. You caught him at just the right moment. Tremendous impact. 5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points. First place and judge's choice. Beginner's Color Prints. Barcelona from Mount Juic. Tonal range is well balanced and the highlights aren't blown out. The composition is good and the image is sharp from front to back. 1 point for impact, 3 points for composition, 1 point for technique, for a total of 5 points. Backdoor at the Ballet. This image has been sized up too much to print large from a small image file. The image looks gritty, but not in a good way. The composition is good, though. 2 points for impact, 3 points for composition, 1 point for technique, for a total of 6 points. Reflections.
I really love the sky. I think they picked a really beautiful time to go. It is really beautifully colored. I think the thing that's not interesting, sort of keeping me from scoring it a little bit higher, is the fact that this horizon line is right in the middle and it's just split up like that. It sometimes works, but in this photo it's not completely working for me. It's not one of those times where breaking the rules works, in my opinion.
3 points for impact, 2 points for composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 7 points. Dawn on the Canal by Michael Farnham. There are some vertical lines here that need to be straightened, but the intimacy of this view of the bridge is nice, and you definitely shot at the right time of day. Very nice light. 3 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 9 points. Buildin' Road by Julie Horak. In terms of composition, I would have liked to see more room at the bottom of the image for the equipment. While the lighting isn't perfect, the muted light kind of works for the grungy situation of the subject matter, road construction. 3 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 9 points. Dawn in the City by David Stiff.
I mean, I think the lights are nice, the starburst is nice. I would have waited just a little bit longer to make that sky really, really lovely. They could have evened some stuff up or moved things around a little bit more, like do the camera dance a little bit where they're sort of pushing and pulling to one side or the other, because I just don't necessarily like where the buildings are placed. And again, it's one of those situations where it either needs to be straightened up or crookeded out because these lines are sort of going off in a certain way. It's not taking into consideration the space quite well yet.
3 points for impact and composition, 4 points for technique, for a total of 10 points, and honorable mention. Lights of Las Colinas by Chris Cobos.
This is a better time to take it at night. It's a little bit later, so the lights are still doing what they need to be doing, but still this color is really nice in the sky. And I love these lights that are coming swooping down in here.
4 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 12 points and 3rd place. Reflections by Richard Stern. I like this photo more the longer I look at it. The reflections remind me of the painter Tommy Fitzpatrick. The colors are great, and I love the glow of the light and the way it is caught and reflected on the buildings. 5 points for impact, 4 points for composition and technique, for a total of 13 points and 2nd place. Psychic Readings by Susan Burciaga.
I like this photo. I like where she's placed. I like the colors a little bit. Like, they're a little funky, but it works because the neon signs are there, so it kind of makes it okay that maybe it's not super on. The composition could be tightened up a little bit, but you can take into consideration this sign, this person over here, this person right here. And maybe the composition is fine and just the building's a little cattywampus.
5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points and 1st place. Next we have Advanced Color Prints. Venice Alleyway by Jay Hoppenstein.
Not a fan of the fact that they tried to make this look like a matte, and it's not a matte, but the colors are great. Pretty interesting composition. I definitely move around a lot in the reflections and back to the boat. There's definitely several layers, and I like that the layers are going on this angle instead of like a foreground, background, normal sort of situation. Like it's on this angle, which is very interesting to me.
4 points for impact and composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 11 points and honorable mention. No Waiting by Rachel Cook.
This is a pretty nice photo. The color's really good. The angle's nice. I like where they kept the feet in there. I might have put a sliver of more room, but it's not enough of a sliver moment to really bother me.
4 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 12 points and 3rd place. Golden Gate by Tina Arms. I find this image intriguing. There is similar fall-off in the focus of the chain link as there is in the visibility of the view of the bridge. I like the parallel lines that occur between the chain link and the bridge. There does seem to be a little bit of fringing along the bottom of the fence, but the color is good overall. 4 points for impact, 5 points for composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 12 points and 2nd place. Rachel Carson Bridge, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, by Stephen Reeves. This photo is technically excellent. The composition and impact are above average. Four points for impact and composition, 5 points for technique, for a total of 13 points and 1st place. Masters Color Prints. Urban Lifestyle by Tom Marusa.
I really love in this one, the way these like poles are mimicking the buildings. I think that's really nice. And I really love that the buildings aren't as high as the poles in the reflection. So the color is really, really great. It's intriguing. I like the way the lines are mimicking each other. It's just a strong, in general, photo.
5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points, and honorable mention. Night at the Opera by Dennis Ritchie.
Super solid photo. It's gorgeous. I love the time of night it was taken. It's that beautiful blue color. I love the way the red and everything reflects. I also love, I'm assuming those words are in the water or like in the fountain area, but I love those words that are coming down off of whatever it's coming down from. I think it looks really, really cool and very interesting.
5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points, in third place. Woman Counting Her Shop Sales in Agra, India by Harry Rumberger.
Composition, awesome. Color, awesome. Impact, awesome. Like, that woman is just great. She's sitting there and she's just doing her thing, and she has all these beautiful wrinkles. I love the tires that are mimicking each other. I love this thing on the roof that's sort of all crumpled up, and this like whole thing it tells me a lot about the space that she's living in. It tells me a lot about her, or at least it gives me assumptions that I can make about the space and the place and her lifestyle.
15 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points, and second place. Chinese Food and Hamburgers by Frank Richards.
The color is great. They clearly utilized the space. They found a really interesting place to do this at, where like the signs are a little bit skewed. Obviously, it has the funny factor because you have the hamburgers and the Chinese food and the donuts. And where she's placed in that photo is just beautiful. The light on her is great. It comes in, which is really unexpected because there's that lip off the thing from it, and she has a really nice natural expression. So there's just really something really great about that. It's really intriguing. Like, I can look throughout the whole photo at the building, but then there's just that little extra bam right there, and I can't take my eyes off her. She just has a really interesting expression. She just seems like an overall intriguing woman.
5 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 15 points, first place, and judge's choice. Kate had the following observations after reviewing this month's prints.
Well, let me ask you if there's anything you could offer, kind of overall what you saw.
I think your monochrome vision is stronger in terms of value and tonal range than the color is. I feel like a lot of the color situation was people were apt with color to either throw a filter on it, or they were more apt to like oversaturate it and just things like that weren't really necessary to help in the impact of their photo. Also, I'm a big stickler about composition, so having people really pay attention to those compositions, where things lie in the frame, what's happening in the foreground, what's happening in the background, how they correlate to one another, to really help tell their story and narrate it. The people who were really good, there's just a beautiful story that was happening, and there's a beautiful natural thing that was sort of happening with those. When you have people in the photograph and they're meant to be like a part of that story, you need to make sure that they're like at a point where they're not just looking funky in the photo or making weird expressions, that they need to make that story go on. There needs to be something extra somehow. Either they're really beautifully doing some sort of movement like the Chinese person, the shot photo, or there where she has this beautiful expression on her face. But there was other where there was people where they were trying to utilize the people where they really weren't making something extra in their face to make them going on. They became an object, and not necessarily a very interesting object, whereas those, they become a person. It makes me feel like I know them in some way, or I'm sort of captivated by them rather than they just become another thing in the photo.
Some judges really hone in on mounting and matting, and other judges sort of just blow it off. Clearly, mounting is important to you.
Yes.
Generally speaking, what are some good guidelines as, if you're approaching this from ground zero, where to go with that kind of thing?
Just in general, especially if you're interested in selling your photo or you're interested in that sort of professional practices, you should never just mount it straight on the board. You want it to be where it's like, can be a loose print. You can pick it, you can open up the frame, take it out, so whoever is purchasing it can then go ahead and do with it what they want. Take into consideration the size of the mat in terms of the size of the photo. Do you want this intimate photo to be really, really small and then the mat to just be oversized and beautiful? Or do you not want that? There needs to be some sort of balance, some sort of consideration. And the ones that were nice, and I didn't even mention them because they were just nice, but the ones that weren't, like, they were distraction. When there's like too small of a mat, it's a distraction. When it's not laying straight, it's a distraction. When it's mounted straight on the board and you haven't cut any of the edges off, it's a distraction, and it's taken completely away from your photo. Presentation it becomes extremely important.
And so the mounting needs to match that. And it sounds to me like a successful mounting job or matting job becomes invisible. You don't know. You don't notice it.
And that's kind of the point of mounting jobs in photography. Is like you want to make it look nice, but you don't want to, like, it's supposed to not be a distraction. So if it's not a distraction, it's a good thing.
The projected judge for October is Rob Hull of GreatPhotography.com. First we have Beginners Projected. Urban Sprawl.
Urban sprawl, even though it's a quintessential image for the urban landscape, one thing that kind of brings the score down a little bit is the, for example, white balance on here. It's very blue, and if you play with the white balance a little bit, you can get it to be more of a natural coloring. When you have an overall cast like that, it just turns everything off color, including the trees and things like that. So you really want to make sure that you get a proper white balance onto your images.
2 points for impact and composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 7 points. Scene in Denver Art District by Jackie Carver.
This one, if you look at it, is using the red steel framework as a framing element, which is a really nice thing to do compositionally in a print. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, when you look at all of the lines and everything that are going on here, it really makes for an interesting picture. A couple things that you want to look at is just where you're placing some of your subject elements. The person at the bottom, we've cut them off part way, part of that subject at the bottom there. So there's some things that are really close to the edges, and even though we're using that framing there, it's cut in too tight for that subject at the bottom.
3 points for impact and composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 8 points. Denver Art Museum by Mo Stein.
And this is a image, and it really has some very strong lines compositionally. You like diagonal lines and things like that. You want to make sure that exposure and color and tone and all are as strong as they can be. Also lighting. When you have a subject like this, lighting makes all the difference. You want to make sure that you have some interesting light on it so that it becomes kind of a stronger image.
3 points for impact and composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 8 points. Evening Walk on the Canal by Julie Horak.
An evening walk on the canal is a nice image taken at night. One thing about taking images like this is, one thing I like to see is more color or more interest in the sky. Good thing to do is look for when the sun goes down or just before sunrise, when you start getting some coloration in the sky, you can get some really nice blue tones in the sky, the warm tones down below, and it can really make for a much stronger picture.
2 points for impact, 3 points for composition and technique, for a total of 8 points. Old Alley by David Stiff.
This is an alleyway. Obviously you can see it's a little bit of electrical work, kind of electrician's nightmare, I guess, back there. The lines and everything really showing kind of a vanishing point in there, so it's kind of nice in the way that you're seeing the depth through the alleyway there. The coloring and everything is a little bit flat for me. I would prefer to see much richer colors, maybe a little bit more contrast in there. And as far as, some kind of an interest item in the alleyway, maybe a person walking through it or something like that.
2 points for impact, 3 points for composition and technique, for a total of 8 points. Canal Bridge by Michael Farnham.
And this image actually does a pretty good job when you look at the tonal range that you've got from shadow to the highlights and everything there. As good as that is, I think compositionally I'd like to see a little bit more of the other side of the river. I think also it would be even a little stronger if you were to just crop it down and cut it off, to where the sky wouldn't even be in it. It's one of those things you just got to play with this one a little bit. As far as the colors and tones and things like that, I think it tends to be a little bit on the flat side. I'd like to see a little more vibrancy, maybe a little bit more contrast in it.
3 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 9 points. Grand Canal by Dallas Foglia.
This is in Venice, taken at the top of one of the bridges there. It's just a neat place to go, a neat place to photograph. There's something about the image that you just kind of want to travel there. When you look at it though, I'd like to see, wait around, get some boats down there kind of in the foreground. This is really one of those, when we talk about the travel shots, it's definitely one of those pictures you're going to want to put in your album and when you're traveling to Venice and so forth. But we need to do more to it in order to get the real wow factor. And that has to be either through the lighting, different time of day with the sun raking across it, a little more dramatic lighting, a little more drama down in the water, in the sky, something like that to add some drama and excitement to it.
3 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 9 points. Post-War Berlin by Joanne Pratt.
And this is again one of those, it's a post-processing. But as far as subject matter and kind of the look of it and everything, it's really a very interesting and kind of neat picture. I'm kind of torn by, because one, it really catches my eye, so it has that wow factor when it's on a light table and when it's going through a presentation and so forth. But when you look at the technical aspects of the processing, you'll notice that it's really almost over-processed. If you look at the horizontal pole for the light, you've got the haloing around it, you got the haloing around all the bottom of the balloon, things like that. Those are kind of distracting elements for that, but overall, I kind of like the composition of it and so forth, so it's kind of a neat picture.
3 points for impact, 4 points for composition, 2 points for technique, for a total of 9 points. Urban Charm by Penny Clark.
Urban Charm is one of those, the composition is really nice. I like the lines, the way they come in and flow through there. When you do post-processing like this, using, I don't know which tools you use, but probably Topaz or something like that, you really need to be careful of the audience and of the amount that you use some of these tools. There are going to be people, it's kind of like modern art, there are going to be people that really like it and people that, don't like it or see it too much or something like that. So I think this one is actually pretty well done. The colors are a little bit strong, but overall it's kind of a neat picture, something fun to play with. Movin'
Mustangs by Chris Cobos.
And the moving Mustangs shot in the evening, kind of a time-lapse exposure. It's really kind of a neat picture. One thing that I like about this is that there's definitely this sense of depth. All too often we take this three-dimensional world, and when we photograph it, we put it into a two-dimensional medium. It's images like this that help the viewer turn that two-dimensional medium and realize that there is depth to it. That's something that's really nice to do, and you really have to do in a lot of images. I don't know, about the color tones and everything. I know the lights on it probably are odd colors and things like that. I'd work a little bit with the white balance and the coloring on the horses. And maybe even a little fill flash or something like that off to the side. Overall, it's still kind of a neat picture.
3 points for impact, composition, and technique for a total of 9 points. Mime Theater by Linda Sharp.
This is really an interesting picture. When you look at the urban landscape and just kind of the urban life, when you look at urban landscape, this is a neat picture because it's the whole human involvement in the urban landscape, and something that's a little unusual that you don't see every day. So I really kind of like that. I like the stores in the background, everything else. One thing that's kind of interesting, and really it had no bearing on the score because it's kind of after the fact I noticed it, but once you notice that guy behind the girl there reaching up, then your eye just keeps going there. A little distracting, so maybe a little Photoshop is in order there.
4 points for impact, 3 points for composition and technique, for a total of 10 points. Cityscape by Diane McNabb.
Cityscape is very interesting. It's the kind of the optical illusion in that reflective, I don't know whether it's a flat panel or a spherical ball or whatever, but it really kind of gives you an interesting perspective of the cityscape.
4 points for impact, 3 points for composition, 4 points for technique, for a total of 11 points. The Artist by Karen Mack.
I really like the colors. I like the way that it pops out. The only thing I guess it kept it from scoring maybe higher than others that are in this same category is just the framing, I guess, to the top of the subject. I'd like to see a little bit more room. Whenever you put subjects so very close to the top, I think it kind of becomes a little distracting. So we need a little bit more to the top of that person there. So they've got a little bit more room to work with.
4 points for impact and composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 11 points, and honorable mention. Empty Lot on 4th Street by Ashley Bishop.
This really has a lot of strength to it. I like all the lines, and even though, we're shooting through a chain link fence, so we have that obvious shadowing there, which I guess in most pictures would become very distracting, and yet the lines that are in the chain link fence kind of mirror the lines for the support brackets and all that are in the scene. So I didn't even consider it really a distraction. I do like the idea that the photographer cropped it to give us a different perspective. I do believe that all too often we try to force images into the aspect ratio that the camera gives us, and we need to look beyond that. We need to look at images that are square or rectangular or whatever.
4 points for impact and composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 11 points, and 3rd place. Gherkin Building by Richard Stern.
One reason this scored where it did as opposed to some of the others, if they're all tied, how do you place them, one above the other? And it's simply because if you look at the category, which is urban landscape, this one truly is kind of urban landscape, and it's the juxtaposition of this brand new urban landscape with a older urban landscape. And so that's really what put that one into the 2nd place position, even though it was tied with, 3 other images there.
4 points for impact, 3 points for composition, 4 points for technique, for a total of 11 points, and 2nd place. Free Gas by Bill Cashin.
I really like this image, and this is one of those that when I looked at the category, I really like several images in the whole thing. I really like the free gas. I like the artist. I liked, the empty lot. I even like mime theater, things like that. Those kind of things jumped out at me. When you go through the whole scoring and everything, this one actually scored a little bit better simply because of not just the capture. We look at the lighting on it, the lighting, the time of day, but the post-processing too, a little bit of the vignetting. It really is more of a complete package, so to speak, when it's presented. So it's a very strong presentation and everything.
4 points for impact, 4 points for composition and technique, for a total of 12 points, and first place. Next we have advanced projected. After the Rain by Tina Arms.
This is the reflection of the Winspear Opera House, and I really like this image. One, I like the creativity in the image. It's certainly something that I think a lot of people might walk by and never realize that there's an image to be had there. As far as scoring, higher, when you look at the scores here, because there were several tied scores, why does it come in as honorable mention as opposed to higher? I think that there are other images that have a higher idea of an urban landscape, but definitely, this I think fits the bill, but it's just a very creative image. I like the reflection, I like the clarity of it, I like the post-processing, I like the idea of the vignette to bring your eye in, so very well done all the way around.
3 points for impact, 4 points for composition and technique, for a total of 11 points and honorable mention. Old and New by Aaron Curry.
2 bridges here in Dallas, and I think it's just a very nice picture. I like the coloring. One thing that makes these kind of photographs stand out from others in the entire competition is just the lighting. When you look at the lighting here, it's not midday. We could certainly take the same picture at midday, but there's something about that quality of the lighting this time of day. So certainly a good choice in time of day. I like the subject matter. I like the placement of it. I don't know if I'm sold on the fact of a square composition. I'd certainly play with it both square and a little bit broader. I've never stood at this point, so I don't know what is from either side of it, but it works, and I like it. As far as the layout, being a square layout, things are in kind of the right positions and the right coloring and all that.
4 points for impact, 3 points for composition, 4 points for technique, for a total of 11 points and 3rd place. New York City by Bob Krause.
This is an image that the strength really is in kind of its eye-catching when you look at the coloring that's in there, the use of that poster that's above the Bank of America office there, kind of that orange and everything. I don't like the white sky as much, but certainly there's some strength in the orange part there that's pull your eye in, but just some interesting things going on there, and definitely an urban type of landscape.
4 points for impact, composition, and technique, for a total of 12 points and 2nd place. Arriving Train by Jeffrey Sarenbach.
Definitely like this image. I think it's one of the strongest in the overall competition, just because of the colors that are used and so forth, the red and the yellow and the black and the whole graphic appeal to it and everything. Overall, I think just a very, very strong image. To me, I think it would have been nicer if she was just a tad bit sharper. When you look at the technique here to try and get the train so that it's blurred and her in the background and everything else, I think there's a challenge there. But overall, I really do like this whole composition.
5 points for impact, 4 points for composition and technique, for a total of 13 points, 1st place, and judge's choice. Next we have Masters Projected. City Lights by Tom Marusa.
In this one, again, the competition being urban landscape certainly is very strong as far as talking about an urban landscape. I like compositionally what's going on here. I think I made the comment earlier about these kind of nighttime photographs that I really prefer them when there's still some kind of light in the sky. Either pre-dawn or after sunset, when the light in the sky is kind of equal with the light in the buildings. I think that could improve it.
4 points for impact and composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 11 points and honorable mention. Claxvik Faroe Islands by Steve Newman.
And this one, just kind of a neat image when you look at the timing and everything, the rainbow, the clouds, the city, and everything that's there. Not urban in the sense that we think of it for Dallas and New York and all that, but definitely it's probably urban for this part of the world. So, it's just a different way to look at urban. Overall, I like the composition. I like the look of the picture. As far as things to change, it would be nice if maybe there weren't so many clouds there or whatever. I don't know. It's just one of those things you sit around and play with it or shoot with it for a while. And when you start working with it, there's always something you kind of wish was a little bit different. All in all, I think the photographer did a great job.
4 points for impact, 5 points for composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 12 points in third place. Streets of Moscow by Kay Hale.
This is one of those pictures that when you look at it on a light table, it definitely pops. It definitely has a little bit of that wow factor. I really like that. When you look at these kind of images, I like the colors and all that. One question would be is why second place as opposed to first or anything else when you get down to splitting hairs like this? Well, part of it would be just saying, if it were to score a little higher, I think the colors, the color in the sky to me, it's maybe just a little off. I know the sky turns very blue, and in fact, I like the blue sky with it, but the overall coloring, the overall sharpness of it and all that just seems to be just a tad bit off. The sharpness and everything in like the building in the foreground seems to be a little bit off. So that's probably why it wouldn't score as a first place here.
5 points for impact, 4 points for composition, 3 points for technique, for a total of 12 points in second place. Dallas by Bill Nafee.
This is just a real pretty skyline of Dallas. It's one that I don't want to call it generic. I mean, obviously the photographer did a great job going out and capturing this image. The exposure and everything is really right on. A lot of things that add strength to this is the clarity of it. It's very sharp, very clear. The colors all seem to fit really well with the overall picture. I do like the vignetting to draw your eye to the middle. It's probably a little overdone in this picture. Probably could have scored a little bit higher had it not been that kind of vignette to it, but just a little bit softer or maybe a softer edge to it. But either way, it's still a very nice photograph.
4 points for impact, 5 points for composition, 5 points for technique, for a total of 14 points in first place. Rob had the following comments to share in closing.
Now, before we go, let me just make a couple comments about the overall entries and comment on a few of them that may or may not have scored where you would have expected them, but still images that I like. First off, as far as scoring these kind of things, there's so much that goes on in your mind. When you look at these kind of images, like I say, the first thing I do is lay them out on a light table, and I'm looking for the impact, the wow factor. That's really the top priority for a picture to score well. It's got to be able to pop off and set itself apart from all the others that are there. When we look beyond impact, then there's 11 other things that we're really looking for. One is creativity. Is the image fresh? Is it different? Is it, have you used a little imagination in creating it? And so we're looking for creativity. That's why, like in the advanced category, the train scored so well with the girl in the umbrella. It's a very creative image, and creativity is one of the most important aspects to scoring a competition like this. As we go down the list, the next item would be technical excellence. We need technical excellence not just in the capture of the image, but also in post-processing, retouching, manipulation, sharpness, all those kind of things. The whole package has to be technically excellent. And that's something that everybody, we always need to keep working on that because the tools and everything that we have at our disposal keep changing, and the techniques get better, and so we've got to constantly keep changing that. Composition then is something too where we're looking at artistically at how is it all put together, and is the viewer kind of like invited into the picture, and are they, do they want to stay in the picture? Lighting is important, and that's something overall when you look at the images that scored well, they tend to have some kind of a unique lighting. It's not just flat lighting, and unique lighting is something that's probably a little harder to shoot, but it adds so much interest to a picture. Style is something, if you've developed your style, there are several images in there that really are starting to look like folks have developed a good style there. The presentation, the center of interest, which is your subject matter, is that something that's clearly defined in your image? And then subject matter. In this case, it's urban landscape. And was that appropriate? And did the story really talk about that with the urban landscape? Color balance is another thing. When we look at all the colors, and are they appropriate for the image that you're creating? Technique is another thing where, as far as, just how you capture things. What techniques do you use? And that's not just in the post-processing like some of the Topaz tools and things like that, but it's also in the capture in the camera, what techniques you use for that. Do the techniques you use create sharp images and all that? And finally, just telling a story. Does the image tell a story that you want it to tell? Is it something that's really of interest to a viewer? Overall, in looking at all of the different images that are in there, obviously, there are several that I like. One, and I'm not sure we talked about it, but in the advanced category, that image called the arriving train, I really enjoyed that image, and I gave that image the judge's choice for this competition. A couple other images, though, that I wanted to talk about because they may not have scored, and so I'm not sure we even talked about them, but the old postcard of Hotel Row in Aguas Caliente in Peru. I think is very creative. It's a really neat kind of image. I like the way it's done. I like the way it's put together. Not sure I'm thrilled with the square cropping of it, but overall I really like that picture. And I think if you just look at the competition that it was in there with, it was difficult to score higher, but it's definitely one that it attracts attention, and it was one that was really kind of a neat picture. There's several others out there that had nice landscape and urban landscape kind of themes to them that were really nice. Overall, I think some of them, it's like there's two ends of a spectrum. Several of the pictures are under processed, meaning they were shot in the camera and somebody just stuck them out there as, without any kind of processing to get the white balance right, the color and all that. And then some were almost over processed, and so there is a fine line you walk in that, but when it's done right and everything looks good, then that's a neat image. Another one that I really liked, but I don't think scored well, was the Sunday morning. The picture of the trees in front of the building. I think the lines of the trees and the lines of the building, I think, really look nice, and it's a really neat image, and it's a neat image for the urban landscape. And another one that I think looks very, very nice, but in comparison to the other images there, just didn't hold it together enough to score higher. Anyway, that really wraps it up for the comments that I have. I certainly hope that you take these comments as constructively as they are intended, that you look at different ways that you can improve your images, take different classes, learn different things in a club environment. There are so many resources with the other people that are in the clubs, and I know all the clubs here in Dallas, and especially your club, have some really great, outstanding photographers that will share their techniques and their way of shooting and all that. So do take advantage of all those things. And if it ever goes your way, then if you want to look on my website, greatphotography.com, I'd love to have you involved in any of the classes or workshops that I do. And but enjoyed the scoring of the competition here and having you invite me as a judge. And again, I hope that it was helpful for you, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you so much.
Congratulations to this month's winners. We'll see you next month.